Hello, guys. Welcome to this new edition of MyInd Podcast. This is Aadit Kapadia coming to you on yet another week with a hyper political podcast. Because अगर elections India में हो और हम politics की बात ना करें तो फिर मतलब what is the point of the MyInd Podcast, right? So I told everyone last week that once we get into election season, which is in 2 months, you'll find 1.5 months, you'll know second May who won the battle of the states. We are here doing our first sort of election podcast, and we are starting with the state of Bengal, and together with me to navigate that and other state elections is author, mathematician, columnist Abhishek Banerjee. Hi Abhishek, welcome to MyInd Podcast.
Thank you, Adit. Thank you for calling me. This is very interesting topic. I'm really excited to talk.
हाँ मतलब we don't need caffeine or any other stimulant to talk about elections in India,
No,
right?
that too Bengal elections. I mean, Bengal elections. इसका अलग ही नशा है. I mean, there is a different nasha of Bengal elections.
There is पता है there was those memes, kids, adults, legends, kids talk about this election. तो इसमें ये है कि legends start talking about district elections, or in Bengal तो every voter is a legend talking about local elections with global issues.
Absolutely. I mean, college के election maybe you find dead bodies. So
That is what I was coming to. Is unbelievable.
And see, this is a horrible thing, and this kind of polarization, I mean, it's unbelievable, and this really has to stop. I actually recently wrote an article saying this culture of violence has to come to an end.
Yeah, but and we connected after the piece on News 18 you wrote about Bengal, about why the BJP has risen in Bengal, and the Trinamool also is to be blamed. And it was a fantastic piece. If you guys haven't read it, both Abhishek and I have tweeted about it. So pause the podcast, read the piece, and come back, because we'll be talking about that piece, and I'm not going to be reading the whole piece, but I'll be reading excerpts from it and so forth. What I wanted to sort of for our viewers or listeners, I'll say 294 Vidhan Sabha seats in Bengal and 148 needed for majority. Dominated by left front for 34 years, and then Mamata Banerjee since 2011 has pretty much dominated. I would actually say since 2009, because 2009 Lok Sabha was the inflection point when she did that alliance with the Congress, and then it's pretty much been Mamata. And Mamata was probably hoping to dominate West Bengal till she decided to retire. But then came 2019 Lok Sabha elections, a precursor to which was 2014, where BJP became the number 2 party in Bengal. But 2019 they got 18 Lok Sabha seats. So having put that in context, which is close to about 100 Vidhan Sabha seats, if you sort of just juxtapose those values, the vote share that BJP got, 100 to 115 Vidhan Sabha seats.
I think it was 121. If I'm not wrong, it is 121.
Okay, 120. Because the reason I'm looking 100 to 115 is because of the narrow margins. But you're right. It could be 121. Sure. But now, even after 2 years after the elections, the demographics, or maybe not the demographics, but certainly the populations, the contours have changed, and people do vote differently for state than Vidhan Sabha elections. So having put that into context, what is your initial analysis of Bengal?
Yeah. So one thing I would say is I like to tell this anecdote. It's not really an anecdote. It's more of a fact observation that will set the tone for how unique the politics of Bengal is. So let me take you back to 2 successive elections that happened, 2015 and 2016. In less than 6 months apart, November 2015, Bihar, there is an election, assembly election. Then May 2016, there is an assembly election in Bengal. You see, 2 neighboring states, close by states, cousin states almost, quite poor, backward states, both of them. But if you notice, in the 2 states, we found actually very different results. Because you see, in 2015, what happened in Bihar? You see, BJP had the momentum, but Janata Dal United and RJD, they had the arithmetic. So they said, how are we going to stop BJP? So JDU and RJD, they sat down and said, if we add our vote shares, it is more than BJP. So no matter what is the arithmetic, how our cadres bear with each other, we'll figure out some way. And then they came together, and you see, they won in a landslide. Now seeing that is November 2015. And in only 6 months later, there is election in Bengal. So Congress and left, they are sitting in Bengal and thinking, hey, we can play the same game. If we add up the Congress vote share and the left vote share, it is more than the Trinamool Congress vote share. Did you see what Nitish Kumar and Lalu Yadav just did in Bihar? So let us come together, and our vote share is more than Trinamool Congress, and we'll teach them a lesson. What happened? CPM got 30 seats and the Trinamool Congress went over 200 seats. Why? Because the moment Congress allied with the left and the left cadres, they went into the gullies and mohallas of Bengal asking for votes in the name of Congress. People were almost beating them with slippers. That 30 years you told us that Congress is against left and left is against Congress, and now suddenly, and literally the expression was that you have brought the chappals of Madam Sonia Gandhi on your head and you have come. After 30 years, you leftists have come asking for votes with that. So, see, the similar thing could have happened in Bihar, but people did not say that. But in Bengal, what it shows, this the sharp ideology, the role that ideology plays in the election. That just because Congress and left this joined hands and because they had arithmetic, people were sick of that alliance. They were like, this is horrible. We cannot tolerate such a compromise. It's just anathema to us. That's why the Trinamool Congress won in a landslide. So here, right away, you can see this difference between two neighboring states and the role that ideology would play in Bengal. Now, actually, what is happening in Bengal is we are seeing a most fascinating election in the sense that it is very rare that in India's politics, such a big state gets transformed on such a scale and within such a short amount of time. I think only parallel would be maybe Andhra Pradesh when, Telugu Desam party was formed overnight and, it swept Congress out of power. Maybe there is another example in Assam when the Assam Gana Parishad after the Assam Accord.
But both are very regional issues.
Yes, exactly. Both are very regional, very specific kind of situation. I don't know honestly if that can be compared to Bengal. But the point is, here you have a dominant party sitting there, and then the BJP has been around for a while, right? Everybody knows the BJP. May not be big in Bengal, but everybody is aware of the BJP. And then this force comes in, and in a matter of 6 years, it has come to a point where Trinamool Congress, their supposed election expert, Prashant Kishore, who I don't think is very much of an expert, says that, I will make sure they won't get more than 100 seats. Go back and find out in 2014, in September 2014, there was a by-poll in Bosirhat Dokhin seat in Assembly constituency. And BJP won that seat. That was the first MLA BJP got in West Bengal in a decade. And today your condition is such that you are saying that we will make sure they cannot cross 100 seats. So you have already started by conceding 100 seats to the guy who did not have one seat 5 years ago. Yeah. But it also tells you how much they expect. I mean, how your other side sees you.
And what is interesting is, I think BJP in the last election, Basirat Dakshin was before 2016, but in 2016 they won 3 MLAs.
Just 3.
But the interesting part is, even though they had 3 MLAs, they were in contest only in about 9 or 10 other seats. So it was widely believed in Bengal that in 15 seats, and the major part was around the border of Bihar, Jharkhand or northern part, where there is a sharp Hindu-Muslim divide as well, because there are some very communally sensitive seats where you did have Congress pandering to the extremist faction on one side. So there was a reverse sort of counter polarizing, and that is also an interesting thing between Congress and left, that Congress was never powerful in the Bhadralok, Kolkata, North and South 24 Parganas. They were in Maldaha. I forget Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary's seat, but you know what I'm talking about.
I think it is Jongipur.
Jongipur is Pranab Mukherjee's old seat.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, absolutely.
And,
my fault.
Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary's seat. It's
Behram, it is in that region that
Behrampur or something. I forget the exact.
Behrampur might be.
It's the north sort of Bengal.
Yeah, Malda Murshidabad corridor. Yeah.
Murshidabad. Yeah. So basically, BJP and Congress were in contest there, and so the Congress was never going to be an add-on factor to the left in the southern part of Bengal, which is not in the same sort of place. But now we are saying BJP is even making inroads into those areas. So how do you view that?
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite topics, understanding the Bhadralok. See, if you ask the Bhadralok of Bengal, who are your icons? Okay, the first icon they will name is Winston Churchill. The second icon they will name is Dr. Bidhan Chandra Ray. Okay, third icon they will name is Jyoti Basu. Fourth icon they will name is Mamata Banerjee. Now, that's okay. Anybody can have any icons. I have had friends who used to idolize Inzamamul Haq. That is okay. But the coincidence is that this is also the list of the people who have ruled over Bengal. First the British, then the Congress, then the CPIM, and now Mamata Banerjee. So very soon you will see that Modi will rise in the ranks as another of the Bhadralok icons. But what is happening with respect to the Bhadralok is that they are feeling that see, this is a group of flatterers around Calcutta, okay, and they need the patronage to stay in power.
Yes.
So anybody who comes to power rule in Calcutta, they generally give these people a bargain, and they sort of offer that you sing my praises and I will treat you nicely. The problem that the Bhadralok is having with the BJP is that BJP has so far not made them any offer, and that is why they are so nervous at the moment. So now everybody uses the word Bhadralok. Everybody is aware of it, but there is actually a counterpart of this word in Bengali, which is literally called Chotolok, which literally means the small people. There are the Bhadralok who are the gentle people or the big people, and then there is the Chotolok. And who is the Chotolok? Chotolok is basically anybody who does not who is not within a few certain kilometers of Calcutta. And then anything it is labeled as Chotolok culture. If if your song is maybe a little provocative, if there is some nice lyrics, somebody is dancing, enjoying, that is also Chotolok. Everything is Chotolok culture.
So your classic elite versus non-elite.
Yeah, it is class-based elitism. It is complete class-based elitism. So what the BJP strategy this time is actually very different, in the sense that, and although in some ways it is a continuation of what they have followed in many other states, is that you get the non-dominant groups together and you mount a challenge against the dominant group. Right. This is what they have done in Haryana. This is what they have done in Uttar Pradesh. They have done this in many, many states. Right. But in Bengal, you don't have that kind of caste divide. So that is not possible. But what you have is this Bhadralok versus Chotolok divide. There is this disempowered larger group. So what the BJP did was, they went to the tribal regions of Bengal. They went to North Bengal. And what they have done is they have turned these areas into bastions. The regions neighboring Bihar, neighboring Jharkhand, the parts in northern Bengal, these places they have turned into their bastions. When Amit Shah visited Bengal, he started his tour not by going to Calcutta. He started his tour somewhere in the tribal regions of Purulia and Midnapur. So these people, they have always been regarded as, even though technically you are Bengali, you are not part of the dominant group. And what BJP has done is united this group. And now BJP is poised to sweep this region. The chattering that you hear about BJP in difficult, tricky position, that problem is all around this South 24 Pargana and Kolkata region. Because that is the area where BJP is the weakest. And even if you see the Lok Sabha election, in the last phase in the Bengal election, I think they won only one seat, or maybe not even that. So it is in... Yeah, tell me. Yeah.
No. So, but I think that is also almost symptomatic of many states, right? So if you see other states, right, you'll always find in urban centers, generally, urban centers are the last bastions to fall. They generally tend to vote either regional issues or national issues. So when I say regional issues on language basis, maybe sometimes like the language politics, like the Bengali politics might, because Mamata has been doing this, portraying BJP as this Hindu party, and herself as the party for all Bengali sort of thing. So that might play in a few city pockets and stuff, because they might not be affected by governance as much as in those in the tribal areas, right? And I think that is probably what is sort of that catapulted Mamata the way it did. But what is interesting, I find, is that BJP also was not as powerful in Bengal and in Bihar and Jharkhand as it is today. Right? In Bihar now, BJP is the number one political party. 10 years ago, BJP was Nitish Kumar's, it was there, it was a second political party, but it needed the alliance with Nitish Kumar and had to play the second fiddle to it. It couldn't bargain as well it does now. So I think there is almost a spillover effect as well. Would you agree? To neighboring districts of Bengal?
Well, so I don't know if there is exactly a spillover, because generally speaking, what one will see in Indian politics is that state lines are like, they're like, written in stone. You have Karnataka, which used to be BJP's beachhead in the south for such a long time, and it did not impact any other region. Now Telangana is coming into that is actually for me the biggest untold story of 29. Everybody noticed Bengal, but very few people noticed Telangana. When BJP took 4 seats, I could not believe my eyes. I mean, how is BJP winning 4 seats in Telangana?
So, before you have one pause, guys, please go back to the history of we interviewed Arvind Dharmapuri, who was the architect of or one of the biggest giant killers in Telangana. Guys, please check out that. I am doing a very shameless plug, but I think it needs. The story is so insane. Like BJP was nowhere. It had, I think, one MLA in Telangana, and from one MLA you go to 4 MPs. It is the most, and one of the seats happens to be the chief minister's daughter.
Yes.
That is the unbelievable. Sorry,
yes,
Abhishek, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. Yeah, so there's so much. See, our politics is so entertaining. You can't, even stop anywhere. Everything leads to everything else. So now, but one thing I would actually disagree with you when you say that BJP was the number 2 party in Bihar. See, that is actually not true. If you go back to the year 2000. BJP, I think, had 67 seats in Bihar Assembly, and Nitish Kumar had only 35 seats in the Assembly. And that is where, these at that time, one should not say like this, but at that time, maybe that was what they needed. But Vajpayee's government made certain compromises for which BJP is still paying the price in Bihar. I mean, at that time, pushing Nitish Kumar as, chief minister face, when there was like in the year 2000, what 10 days, Nitish Kumar was the chief minister. Yeah. Now it was like 10 days, but those 10 days have kept BJP out of power in Bihar for 15 years. So that is how big the impact of one small decision can be. In some sense, it is perhaps after reaching 182 seats. I mean, that is, of course, is a massive thing. No other group has ever been able to come up with this big of a alternate political formation. But I think at some point, Atalji and Advaniji, maybe age played a role. They began to doubt their own acceptability as a nationwide thing. So, they started pushing regional faces like Nitish Kumar. I remember Advaniji himself had said that in a country like India, an ideological party is always limited. I remember these exact words that he said. So at some point, they felt that there was some limitation. They pushed Nitish Kumar. Until today, BJP is in number 2.
Why not just that? Even in Andhra, Chandrababu Naidu. So in 1998, they won 4 Lok Sabha seats on their own with 20%.
Yes, I was about to say, absolutely. Yeah, Andhra is another tragedy. I mean,
and I was looking at Vizag, I think, because today YSRCP swept the Andhra local polls. I was like, Vizag BJP won last time in 2014. 2019, they only got 35,000 votes in spite of having Purandeshwari, who is actually a very good face that they got from the Congress and could be probably in the cabinet. But, somehow the contours of Andhra have been so difficult after they gave up the space to Chandrababu Naidu and had the wrong people on the negotiating table. What is interesting is, and we'll jump back on Bengal, guys, because now we are behaving like Shekhar Gupta on print videos, where we go into historical context and come back. I'm kidding. I actually quite like when Shekhar does that on political videos, because
incidentally, I actually ran into Shekhar Gupta once at Bangalore airport, and I told him that I don't like your ideology as a person, but I love your cut the clutter. But anyway,
but unki ideology bhi very interesting hai on economics and national security is very right of center. And then but then problem is he likes to play around his friends who might be on the other side of the political line. So that's my issue. But anyways, we'll take we both just had a Shekhar moment where where we had a meeting with the person that we invoked. But in any case, coming back to the national election, I think the most critical part is BJP in 1998 got 58 seats in UP. And it dropped to 29 seats in 1999 because of the fight between Kalyan Singh and Atalji. Because there was a tension and he was replaced with Ram Prakash Gupta. My point is, even though they lost almost 29 seats in UP, they still got 182 across India. So that means they picked up seats everywhere. And had they actually held on to at least 10 of those UP seats and a few others where they lost, in Maharashtra also there were losses and stuff, you were looking at BJP getting 200, 210 easily even in 99. So I think there was a miscalculation. Also, I think what we forget is the age had caught up with Atalji and LK Advani, because even Advani, if you ask him, I don't think he was looking at himself for becoming for Prime Minister for more than one term. even when you are maybe 2 terms at most. So I think the difference is also the zeal with which campaigning. And let's not forget, Narendra Modi is a phenomenal campaigner, akin to
Yes.
what Vajpayee was in his younger days. But and 2099 2000 he was almost 75, and the pauses had increased, so he couldn't campaign with the same vigor that he did. So I think that did play a role, that they wanted the state leaders to do the heavy lifting, and that all never goes well. But coming back to Bengal,
Yeah.
um, BJP, I think, maximum won two Lok Sabha seats in
Yes.
since 1952, right? And
Yes.
Bengal has always been a special state for the BJP because, of course, Shama Prasad Mukherjee is from Bengal, and there is a emotional sort of connect to that as well. So from two Lok Sabha seats to 18, and now to almost 100 MLAs, right? How do
Yes.
you think we should approach this now? Do you think they will approach this with a one leader, or do you think they'll paratroop a lot of celebrity candidates? What do you think is the best way to navigate around Bengal?
Now in Bengal, I think, and maybe maybe you can accuse me also of being sort of cut off from the ground, which would be a completely valid accusation. But I feel that in Bengal, ideology really matters. So and to be fair, Mamata Banerjee has changed the political culture of Bengal a lot. I mean, in fact, her style of ruling the state has been rather different from the CPIM. I mean, having all these celebrity candidates giving tickets to half of, so I think last year, okay, last year was pandemic year, but the year before that, there was a fight there was some kind of quarrel, okay, between the TV artists who appear in serials and those who write the serials or something like that. Okay, now you might think, okay, why am I? Why is this? Isn't this a political podcast? Then why are we talking about this? No, because the whole of this showbiz in Kolkata is completely a branch of TMC. So Mamata Banerjee had to resolve that quarrel. So you can imagine how deeply the showbiz and the politics in the state have become linked.
This is
So
such a Bengali problem to have. TV election ke liye bhi you have the chief
no,
minister of the state intervening.
no, and so what happened was that the serial stopped airing on television, okay? And
Goodness.
that was like an emergency. I mean, that was bigger than coronavirus. I mean, Bengal was on the edge that unless the chief minister does something and brings
Yeah.
our serials back on air, uh, then the state is going to go nuts. And it is actually amazing to see the transformation of Bengal, because I remember a time when I was a child, and we would hear that cable TV has been sent by Americans to make our children stop studying. This used to be the most common belief on the streets. And now all over Bengal, everybody loves cable TV, everybody loves their serials. So
And
for
so
me, it is amazing to even think.
when this happened, and please, guys, do not roast me for what I'm about to do in the next 5 seconds. The entire state of Bengal went ki halo, right? Because is it ki halo or ki hoilo? How do you say what happened in Bangla?
Kiholo.
Kiholo, Kiholo.
Kiholo.
See,
Yeah.
I always get confused between H-A, the halo or holo, because the A is pronounced so very differently in Bangla as it's
Yeah.
written. Kiholo. So the problem here, at the crux of the matter, is that politics is in every single aspect of Bengal. From entertainment industry, from
Mm.
that. So when you have to challenge an entrenched party, it's always a problem, because Trinamool Congress has been around for 10 years, so it has entrenched itself, and the decline of the left is so rapid, because you
Yes.
just look at all the people who used to call the shots in 2006. You had Buddhadev Bhattacharya, Biman Bose, Gurudas Dasgupta, Somnath Chatterjee to some extent, right? In the Politburo, Prakash Karat, all of them have completely gone. And I mean, Sitaram Yechuri to hai, but he was always the representative of Congress in CPIM. The joke in around Indian political circle was that Yechuri is the faction leading the faction called Congress M, which is Congress Marxist.
Well, to be honest, I mean, the Congress and the CPM, they have been, playing footsie for a long time. It is only in some parts like Bengal and Kerala it was not obvious. Later, it became overground alliance. Underground alliance became an overground alliance. But so coming down to the exact brass tacks of this particular election, you see what is really happening. One thing, so after 2014. Mamata Banerjee decided, she picked the BJP as her opponent. She did not need to. but she decided to pick the BJP. There are two reasons for this. First is that, she, as usual, she is all thunder and lightning, and she wants to take on, okay, who is the biggest leader in the country? If I fight this discredited left, what will people think of me? So I'll go fight the big guy, Narendra Modi. That is part of it. But the other part was that Mamata Banerjee wanted to take away the Congress Muslim vote pockets, which are around Malda and Murshidabad regions. That is where Bengal Congress actually got 4 seats in 2014, and that was like almost 1/10 of the Congress entire tally came from those 4 seats. Why? Because those were Muslim majority seats. So Mamata Banerjee's calculation was that if I go up against Narendra Modi, if I position myself as a big challenger, those people will come to me. And to be fair, that calculation worked. In fact, in 2011, she had gone in partnership with Congress into the election. She wanted to drop the Congress as a partner. And so she decided to, go up against Narendra Modi, then the Muslim vote will come to her. This was her calculation. And to be fair, it worked in the 2016 election. But what she did not anticipate was that if she picks BJP as her big rival, that BJP will be able to cash in so quickly and so rapidly on that anger of Mamata Banerjee. This is where Mamata Banerjee's political understanding clearly failed her. So, for instance, I remember, right after the 2014 election, Amit Shah arrives in Kolkata, and Mamata Banerjee asks the question, who is this Amit Shah? And Amit Shah says that I am the person who will uproot you from Bengal. So it brought this cheer into everybody who was against Mamata, that, now that they know the left is over, they know the Congress is over, that, some guy has come, and that guy has got the fire in his belly, and he is here to challenge Mamata Banerjee. So also, that is from... Yeah.
I think where she miscalculated was, I think that she tried to make this into a Bengali versus Gujarati issue, not understanding that it actually worked in the favor of Narendra Modi, because he is a regional leader first and prime minister later. So he actually knows how to. The problem is when you have folks, and even in BJP, when you had national leaders who were not chief minister, that's when they had problems negotiating with the chief minister. That is why you had a Kalyan Singh, Uma Bharti getting into troubles. Why do you not see a lot of chief ministers having the same issue with Narendra Modi? Not just because he's a popular leader. Atalji after Kargil was very popular, but I think when you are a chief minister, you almost know what the chief ministers want, and you give it to them or you work around them. And I think that is where Mamata miscalculated. Narendra Modi and Amit Shah have become national leaders, so they will stop thinking where nitty-gritty is. And both of them are
that
political.
Yes, because the way Modi would, because I think Modi came in and he had many decisions that he did not want to make Vajpayee's mistakes. I mean, I'm not blaming Vajpayee, but the point is that there were definitely many miscalculations because of which the NDA lost power. The first miscalculation, the most fundamental miscalculation that I would say, which is the biggest difference between Modi 1 and Atalji's government, is that Modi understood the importance of states, and that, as you may be, is because he was a chief minister. So if you see the term of Atalji in power, the BJP was constantly losing power in states. Why was that happening? Because the fundamental reason that happened was because when the BJP came to power, all of the BJP's firepower became concentrated in the ministry, and the party itself went into decline. It is not again to point fingers, but you had party presidents like Jana Krishnamurti, Kushabao Thakre, Venkaiah Naidu, who were not exactly mass leaders in their own right. I mean, they had honest intentions, but not much more than that. And even one other person. But if you see Modi's his very first decision on winning the election was Amit Bhai will become the party president. So, he gave this profile, I need I need a prodigy leading my party, because he understood BJP has to win in many other states, because the small bucket policy will not work. And he focused on expanding the party in every corner.
Back about 8-9 years ago, when Arun Shourie wasn't sounding as crazy as Yashwant Sinha on political issues, he had this wonderful quote that he quoted Jenny Zell Singh ki do tarah de leader honde hai, ek te state leader, dusre stateless leaders. So you had, that is the reality of India. You have state leaders and you have stateless leaders.
So Modi was able to ground this very, very well.
And because we are doing an election sort of analysis, there is no analysis that we can do without giving you the numbers. So I just want to kind of show you guys what the situation in 2019 was and what we're looking at for 2021, what Abhishek and I were, talking about. So people who are on SoundCloud, you'll have to go to our YouTube page to sort of view this, because this is what it is. So if you guys look at it, this is the South region that Abhishek was talking about. This is all Trinamool's stronghold, and these are the border regions of Bihar and Jharkhand, where BJP has done well. And then again, this is the North region, where actually Congress, there is a sort of a polarization between that, and you can see Congress has won these 2 seats right here. So that is the sort of the thing. So how would you interpret this into state elections, Abhishek? Do you see BJP actually sweeping all this as well, areas?
Yeah, so you see, there is a very, like I said, that the tribal regions, those regions which are near Bihar and Jharkhand, those regions BJP has swept. Then there is North Bengal, which is also what BJP has swept. So that is the part above Farakka barrage. Now, where is the BJP's problem? The BJP's problem is in 2 areas. One of that area of that Malda Murshidabad region, which is a peaceful majority region, and then there is the region around Kolkata, which is the main problem for the BJP, because the other region, the BJP really doesn't have a chance. I mean, once the demographics goes out of whack, it is just impossible.
And if you look at the seats, there is a cluster of Lok Sabha and Vidhan Sabha seats in the Kolkata region.
Yes, and of course, it is the most populous part of the state. So obviously, it has the maximum number of seats in there. So that is the region which BJP has to crack, because they already have the. So their strategy will be to sweep first of all what the regions that they have already done in the Lok Sabha, and then make these dents into this this South 24 Parganas regions, the North 24 Parganas. And what I would say is that the panic in the Trinamool Congress shows. So one of the things that I would read is, so far, maybe Mamata Banerjee is a completely different person, but so far I have not been able to see in her any of the signs that a winning party shows in an election. So you see all these people, you see, if you notice the flow of these politicians, all these people, they are leaving their parties and they are joining BJP. Now, generally speaking, and you had so many sitting ministers resign and join the BJP. Now, if you know any politician, politicians fight really hard for power. And if somebody is a sitting cabinet minister somewhere, I've never seen a sitting cabinet minister join the other side and then lose. The only time they will go to the other side is when they are absolutely certain, because to join the other side, they have to give up few days in power, right? So even if they are giving up,
not just few days in power, even the cadre.
So they have to lose something, and politicians don't want to lose their chair even for a day. So if they are going, that means they are 100% certain that the net return is positive. That if I give up 6 months in this chair, then I will get 5 years in the next chair. That is the only circumstance in which they will do. Then there is one candidate who actually got the ticket from TMC. Her name is Sarla Murmu, I think, and she's also in the tribal region. So that tells you the tribal situation in the tribal area. She got the TMC ticket, and then she went and joined the BJP. This is almost unprecedented.
Unprecedented. And I actually wanted to show you guys something. So you look at these areas, the northern part, right? The Balurghat, Jalpaiguri, Darjeeling, and where the Alipurdars, where Gorkha Janmukti Morcha's alliance also may have had the BJP. But look at these margins, right? You have very significant margins, except for Balurghat. I mean, all of them are more than 50,000 votes. But then you come to these areas in the stronghold of Trinamool Congress, and you see the margins in Diamond Harbour, Jadavpur. Trinamool has run up the score here, right? I mean, they are winning by an average. But when people say that celebrity candidates do not matter, I want to guys show you this Hooghly, smack bang in the middle of the cluster. You had Locket Chatterjee, popular TV star, actually winning the seat by 73,000 votes, and you have another seat, which is Damdam, which is Tapan Sikdar. When he was the member of parliament, he won Damdam, I believe. So there too, I think there is a chance that BJP has of winning. So it's actually quite interesting that you are not seeing a close cornered fight in every single seat. You are actually seeing some, like Purulia, like we are talking about, 2 lakh votes. Bankura, where Munmun Sen was the MP, but then she was shifted to Asansol. Babul Supriyo, again winning by 2 lakh votes. He's actually going to fight the MLA sort of things. So, and if you look at the vote share, right, and this is symptomatic of how badly it's happened, that Mamata got 43.7%, BJP got 40.6%, and together, Congress and CPIM couldn't even cross 12%.
Yeah.
That's
So
pathetic.
yeah. So what I want to mention here is what
Hmm.
Mamata Banerjee has done since 2019. So she realized that she has got this pro-minority image, and that is genuinely beginning to hurt her. She realized that. So now what has happened is this very exciting organization that everybody in Bengal is talking about, the Indian Secular Front.
Hmm.
So something very, very interesting happened over there. This Abbas Siddiqui person, he has now joined the side of the Congress and the left. Now, what happened here is Mamata Banerjee understood that the minority image is hurting her. She has to do some Amar Akbar Antony kind of thing. So what she has done is she has now, and this guy Abbas Siddiqui, he is an old Trinamool Congress loyalist. So what is he doing in the Congress and the left? And he's giving all this highly polarizing things. Now, obviously, I cannot prove this, but what I believe has happened is that Mamata Banerjee has shifted her toxic ally to Congress and left. Why? Because she understands, well, what is her objective. She does not want to alienate the Hindus further, because she knows the Hindus have become angry from her constant minority appeasement. So she has taken her toxic ally and sent him over to Congress and left. Now you might say, well, but she's going to lose her votes. No, she will not lose her votes, because the peaceful vote that will come strategically and 100% for TMC. She knows that. What she needs to do is she needs to assure the secular Hindus, quote unquote, is that she is not Abbas Siddiqui. That is why she has moved her toxic ally to the other side. And here I want to point out this factor which very few people have talked about. The last hour before the model code of conduct, that's when the governments, they rush to do their most important business. No, the last 1 hour. In that last 1 hour also, Mamata Banerjee sanctioned 2.6 crore funding for Furfura Sharif, which is run by Abbas Siddiqui. And this is not just 2.6 crore. In the last financial year, she has given 20 crores from the official
Yeah.
exchequer for the development of that one Furfura Sharif. So you can imagine that. So if somebody, I would really hope that everybody in Bengal knows that if Abbas Siddiqui really has fallen out with Mamata Banerjee, it is very hard to imagine that Mamata Banerjee is so tolerant of dissent that she has decided to give 20 crores to her enemy. This is, who are they fooling basically?
Yeah,
But the
absolutely.
point, but who are they fooling? They are fooling the people who, are pretty woke and want to be seen as secular or whatever. So, and now these Congress and left people, they are completely desperate. So they don't know their, behinds from their elbows. So they heard this guy Abbas Siddiqui is coming. They immediately put red carpet, pun intended, and said, "Come, join us," because anybody joining us, that will give us here. So previously, these CPM people, they were getting maybe 1% Hindu vote. Now that 1% also they have lost because of Abbas Siddiqui. Now anybody who has voted for say CPIM in 2019, that person is probably not going to give vote to BJP. So
What
Mamata
is
Banerjee is hoping
what is
that vote will come to her.
her? Yeah, and what is interesting is, and that is like you're scraping the bottom of the barrel, right? You're trying
Yes.
to add zero and hope that it actually is 0.5 instead of zero. But you're a mathematician. It all matters where you put the zero. If you add it before a number, it means nothing.
Yeah.
So, but I was wanting to just briefly talk about this map of the state, right? So this
Yeah.
is one phase. You are having 8 phases in Bengal, and you are having this the BJP cluster that goes that actually and I call it the BJP cluster that's actually going to polls quite soon. It's going
Yes.
to polls in 2 weeks almost.
Yes.
So if you look at here, it's 1st April and 27th March. So you can just assume. So all this entire cluster and this region goes to poll in 2 weeks, and the battle is over. Then the battle shifts to the strongholds. So I personally think that the whole thing that is happening about Nandigram and trying to actually force the debate from core issues, local issues, to like a pan-state presence is Mamata's way of admitting that she cannot win on local issues in these seats. So that is why she is sort of going to think. Would you agree with that assessment?
I would say that a lot of decisions made by Mamata Banerjee, we try to find some reason behind it, but sometimes there is no reason. This is a very egoistic person. She saw that one guy has revolted against her. Now she has put her entire machine into fighting that one guy. I will teach that guy a lesson, even if it costs me the whole state. This kind of rather irrational, mercurial kind of reasoning that she does. But the story of the election is very nice. At least for BJP, it's very favorable because they get through their strongholds first. Now, of course, there is a bit of problem because this whole leg incident, this accident injury thing happened. So yes, this is a small jolt. I mean, even if people don't buy into the idea, which they are definitely not buying, that this was some deliberate attack, but still, you have lost 3-4 days because now every single day is important. No, so for 3 or 4 days, Mamata Banerjee was on television, and you have to give her that. That was
Yeah,
a setback.
that is what
Huh.
I'm saying. She knows how to play. And before we expand into this, I just wanted to kind of show you, and I'll stop the screen sharing. Is basically JGM actually has endorsed Trinamool Congress. So Darjeeling areas BJP actually might see some losses because the Gorkhaland Janmukti Morcha. So there are 291 and 3, and basically then you have the Zero Alliance, which is the Samyukta Morcha, which is all you know 10 seats, 5 seats, 15 seats here and there, which means nothing. But what is interesting is right here, the people that they have. You have the Gorkhaland Janmukti Morcha, but then you have two other factions: the Gorkhaland
Yes,
Rajya Nirman
exactly,
Morcha and the
exactly.
Gorkhaland
It is.
National Liberation Front.
Exactly. So those people don't matter so much because BJP has gone behind their backs and got another people or group on their side. It is exactly what BJP has done in Assam. They have dumped the BPF, the Bodoland People Fund, and they have taken this UPPL, which is like this smaller faction which they have brought into prominence, which actually won the Bodoland Territorial Council election. So those things I don't think are going to make a difference. That BJP has pre-calculated what the
And,
plus minus.
and,
Only then they have let GJM go.
and then
So
you have the AIMIM. So basically, you have the AIMIM, which is Owaisi's party, where they are assuming, the assumption is that it will actually cut into the sort of the Muslim vote bank that they were, Congress and Mamata both were hoping that they would get in a few seats. But I don't know if AIMIM is going to be as much of a factor in Bengal as it is in UP, or because there is a
yeah.
language issue also, right?
But
Because
no, but from with respect to AIMIM, I will say it is a complete non-starter. I think in Bihar election of 2015, BJP has learned what AIMIM is because because during that time, I think some of these smaller parties they went to contest elections in Bihar, and BJP was hoping they will cut some of the peaceful vote. But I think the lesson has been learned by BJP right then that it is no, whether MIM contests in Bengal or doesn't contest in Bengal or wins 10 seats or 100 seats in Bengal, it is not possible to cut the peaceful vote. Because, one lesson I would like to point out from Bihar, and again I'll point to Bihar in 2020, just concluded election, is that MIM won 5 seats. Now, considering how close the Bihar election was, it was decided on less than 0.5% of the vote, right? So you would say that, okay, maybe BJP won because MIM cut some of the votes. But that did not happen. There is not a single seat in the whole of Bihar where MIM has made up the difference between JDU, between NDA votes and RJD votes.
yeah.
So, and the most interesting part is MIM has won its seats in Bihar by the largest margins, and they have lost their seats wherever they have lost by the widest margins, both while winning they are the widest, while losing they are the widest. So the peaceful community, it is not possible to divide their votes. They vote as one particular group. And to point out is that why did the NDA win in Bihar? The NDA won in Bihar because the women voted for the NDA, right? In the third phase there was an 11% gap between female turnout and male turnout, and that is what swung the election for NDA. Now if you think about it, so what does it mean? It means that in one community, the whole group knew exactly who was winning, and so they voted for MIM where they were winning, and nobody voted for MIM where they were losing. And in the other group, people are so clueless that the women and the men in the same household don't know who the other person is voting for. So there is a distinction. Let us be clear, there is some
Or
difference.
actually, and very interesting is NDTV. They always do this analysis where, because earlier they presumed that more women vote against BJP and more men vote for BJP, right? But since the last
Yeah.
20 years, because a lot of things has happened on development, they are seeing that women are
Yes.
voting for BJP. They stop doing that analysis. Otherwise, they
Yes.
would be like, women don't tell the men whom they're voting
Yeah.
for is that. But
Yeah.
then Uncle Ji Sena, I always call NDTV Uncle Ji Sena, because you have Pranab Roy and Dorab Sopariwala, all of whom have descended on election analysis studio since 1980s and have never left. And slowly they're all getting sadder by the day. My favorite part about 2019 elections was Enram, because he was so sad about Bengal that he had to seek refuge in the election results of Tamil Nadu. That is or
See,
sorry,
even in
I should say
Gujarat, Modi's secret of
politics.
success in Gujarat is actually women.
Yeah, it is. It
Mod,
is.
it is. They say that after 3 p.m. BJP starts winning in Gujarat, because that's when the women complete the work in the house, and then they will come out and they will vote fully for BJP. Why? Because they know that after Modi came, the curfews culture, the riot culture, everything ended in Gujarat. There was one big riot, but that ended all the riots. So
Two things always propel Narendra Modi and BJP in Gujarat. One is the urban vote, because you have the cluster of Ahmedabad, Surat,
yes,
Rajkot, and Baroda, where
nobody can touch. Yeah,
sweeps. Yeah, and
sweet.
and these idiots don't understand that you cannot win Gujarat by going to the left of Congress. I mean,
Yes.
when when you do that, it's essentially a right of center state, even
Yes.
socially and economically. So you cannot come and give these woke sort of things and win. And then the second part is the women, where you had electricity, water, and gas, where the three things they benefited the most. And even though you had the men who were like those bahubalis, so in Gujarat we have a different term for that, but essentially the bhai or the of the areas, or where they would have like fiefdoms, where all the men would vote for, say, a Congress candidate if he promised something in the tobacco area, or in some parts of Saurashtra. The women actually broke away and voted for that. And the interesting part is that although the difference between BJP and Congress was 10-12% in the elections, those 10-12% came because they ran up the margins in urban centers.
In urban
And
cities.
so in Saurashtra and all, the margins were close. And last election, if you saw, the difference
That
was
was
17 seats. So I actually kept saying since 1 year in advance that BJP is going to be between 95 and 105. And I was called so many names, and ultimately they ended up with being 99. And I'm like, boss, you have to travel through Saurashtra and see the problems. And hamisha ye hota hai, when you have such a strong leader that has dominated the state politics for 15 years, and then Modi goes to the center, there is going to be a little bit of a turf war between local leaders. But now I think BJP is back to its 120
yes,
figure.
yes,
The next
yes. It is actually stunning that Congress could not run with the opportunity they got in 2017. They lost it. They're like, oh, okay, har gaya. Okay, let's give up then and go back.
that
Are
was
you
their
should
best
have
election
stood
to
there.
win.
You should have fought more. You would have won this time, but this time it's gone even worse. And that Hardik Patel figure is completely discredited. He's the most laughable figure, even more laughable than Rakesh Tikait. He has become this, you
When
know.
I find the left in India in the newsrooms propping up that of Jignesh Bhiwani and this, Hardik Patel, I'm like, bhai, you have to really like. I mean, you just have to spend 5 days in Gujarat and to understand what people think about it. Have you seen that very viral video where people actually questioned Hardik Patel in a park? He went for a walk or something
No.
before. When it was, but before 2019 or something, that happened to be in Ahmedabad, if I'm not mistaken, very close to my constituency. And here is how they vote. So in Ellisbridge, which is my constituency, which is a BJP
Yeah.
bastion, Congress, I think, got 25,000 votes in 70s or something, and that had gone up to 30,000 30 years later. So, I mean, even when the population increased, their vote share was the same people voting. It was not like a dramatic increase in population. So, unless until they actually change their strategy, which is the problem in Bengal also. In Bengal also, you have the same old Congress faces and the left faces coming. There has not been a single young leader from the Congress or the left. I mean, I have not heard anyone after Suryakant Mishra. Who is the leader? Who is the new leader from the Congress or left who is going to fight?
Interestingly, I would tell you this time the left actually has been experimenting with a number of young faces, believe it or not.
But
So
then
I don't think, but now by now things have gone too far out of their control. Now the reason the tickets have gone to young people is because the old people don't want to fight elections anymore. They are too tired for it.
yeah,
I think that is why the young people have got tickets. But yes, it is true that at the moment young people have got tickets. But there is one very hilarious incident that I have to
yeah,
mention here. I forget the name of the portal. It is one of the top 2 or 3 liberal portals, and they actually published a scoop on the CPI. What they had done is they have intercepted CPIM's party, and it sounds great, party document number so and so. Okay, internal communication. And what is the internal communication saying? And they put it all over their website that, we have intercepted this big scoop we have got. And the scoop of the CPIM is that internal document of CPIM is saying party is losing youth vote. So this is the kind of secret document of the internal party. You think I mean,
yeah.
this was the leak. I mean, after
So
Watergate, this was the biggest.
Raju, there is a comedian called Raju Srivastav, and he had a joke
Yeah.
about Manmohan Singh. Manmohan Singh ने खड़े होकर पार्लियामेंट में कहा दाऊद इब्राहिम छोड़े नहीं जाएंगे. मैंने बोला पहले पकड़ो तो सही, फिर छोड़ दो उनको. So this is like that. You CPIM losing youth vote. You lose something that you had before.
Have
You
you
don't
heard? Yeah.
have the youth vote since 10
No,
years.
they don't. Yeah, they don't
And
have.
my thing is, if you have to say that, if you say that you don't have the youth vote in 10 years, that means the youth who has grown up is not voting for you,
Yes.
and the current
Yes.
youth is also not voting for you.
Yeah, so it is absolutely laughable, and honestly, it gives me a lot of pleasure, almost sadistic pleasure, to see the condition of the. So I will say that, to see the condition of the communists in Bengal, it almost gives me this sadistic satisfaction. Because when I was a very small child, I was in Bengal. Okay, I was in Durgapur, which was like a big CPM stronghold. I remember asking one day, I was coming back in the morning as I was a kid, and I saw these people with these banners and all, and I asked this uncle ji that what is happening. He said there is an election. I said, what is an election? He said it is when CPM wins. So this was the condition of the state. Before we learned to do kho, we learned from the wall H inne vote ding, means vote on this symbol, because that was, and we all knew that there is this hammer sickle star symbol that is on every single wall. So it gives me a lot of sadistic pleasure to see the condition of the CPI
Yeah, I
in
mean,
Bengal.
all of us are guilty of a little bit of Schadenfreude in when it comes to CPM in Bengal, because
Yeah.
they have literally screwed the state.
Yes.
Because Bengal was a leader in
Yes.
manufacturing, industrial growth, and so forth. And let's not forget, CPIM actually came to power in Bengal as an alternative to the Congress, because in Siddharth Shankar Ray, who led, I mean, so this is what pissed me off. About few days ago, I saw Comrade Kaushik Basu, the one-time chief economics advisor of India, and why I see Comrade Kaushik Basu, go to my timeline or his timeline, and he will provide the justification himself.
Yeah.
He was talking about freedom of expression in democracy, because अभी काफी लोग हैं दुनिया में जिनको इंडिया डेमोक्रेसी नहीं है ऐसा लगता है. Right? So he's one of them sitting in Cornell. He
Yeah.
thought that maybe
Yeah.
Meena Harris was right all along. So
Yeah.
anyways, he said, and I'm like, boss, you were the chief economic advisor to Congress. You don't see any problem with the reign of Siddharth Shankar Ray, with the reign of Jyoti Basu, with Buddhadeb Bhattacharya, with Mamata Banerjee, and now BJP is not even in power in Bengal. आपको अब freedom of expression खत्म
Now
नहीं
freedom of expression. In fact, I will make 2 points about this. First is this recent, this institute I had never heard of, this VDEM Institute. You want to become famous, you form an institute and declare India has become a Nazi state. You'll become world famous. So there is some VDEM Institute in Sweden, which has just said that, India is not a democracy and this, that. You must have seen this report. So according...
absolutely. And
now according to...
If I don't, Sadanand Dume reminds of all this
Yeah. So the point that I want to make was this, that, if you read their report, Swarajya has done this very deep dive into their report. They say that India's democracy was at its peak in 97, 98. Now, what reminds me is, first of all, in 97, 98, India was at one of its weakest points. And second is that in 1997, 98, Jyoti Basu's government admitted on the floor of the assembly that 28,000 political murders have taken place in Bengal. So that is the peak of our democracy, when 28,000 political murders happen. But today, water cannon has been used on protesters, so that is human rights violation. Now democracy is gone. So that is one point I want to make. The other point that I want to make to Kaushik Basu, Comrade Basu, sitting in not Jyoti Basu, Comrade Kaushik Basu, Comrade Jyoti Basu, same thing, sitting in Cornell, is that he should really look at the condition of, I don't know if he is American citizen or not, but he should look at the condition of the state where he is living, because the level of jungle raj that is happening in New York, he should take a look at it. In the last 1 year, murder in New York is up 45%, shooting is up 97%, burglary is up 66%, car theft is up 50%. So this is the level of jungle raj. His governor in New York is accused of inviting a woman to his house, to his official residence, and then molesting her by putting his hand inside her blouse. So this is the level of jungle raj in New York. So before he says something, he should really look at the state he is living in.
The problem is not even that. The problem is that, and that's exactly what I say, that because I when I record this from Houston and vote in India or something, I actually I make that distinction that यहाँ की analysis और वहाँ की analysis हम दोनों करते हैं. But when I see people with Basu and all, they actually do India's analysis from American perspective, and I was like, what? I mean, if you want to get the difference between someone who is, say, not looking at India from the ground up, would be that they read these American newspapers and think that when I say Basu's timeline is pandering to the same American newspapers. Because you actually, if you have spent time in India like me or like many others in India, you would actually want to tell about the right perspective and talk with facts, right? You don't just come up with things because it appeases to the AOC voter in New York or the Mina Harris supporter in California. But that is what I see people doing. And when you have these think tankers in New York and DC, what is happening is, and I actually did a thread on this, that the think tankers, what they're doing is they're peddling this democracy under threat and narrative, and basically trying to sort of pander to a base in America and outside of America, which is not the most cordial about India or about India's story. And unfortunately, years after years, when you have the External Affairs Ministry, have pandered to these think tanks in the hope that they give India's perspective to the others.
Exactly.
And I have not seen that change in the last 10 years also. So I think it is high time that we look beyond it. And I'm glad S. Jaishankar yesterday gave a resounding statement at the India Today conclave saying, sort of bashing all these think tankers and all. And there are a set of people who are like, how the hell can India not play by the rules of democracy that we set? And so they give something about authoritative democracy or something. So SJ said that you talk about authoritative democracy in this. Let me point out to you, this is hypocrisy, nothing else. So that unfortunately is the problem. And I was very angry when I did this thread, and I'm like, I hope the government of India looks beyond these voices, because they are not doing India's bidding, and I am not telling them to become lobbyists for India. If India finds lobbyists, good, but at least give the right perspective and don't fall for this rubbish theory that 5 reporters in New York Times and Washington Post are peddling.
No, in fact, I think but recently my view on these people has changed a little bit, because one thing I would alert these people. The world is beginning to ignore you, because what happens when you overexpose something. See, when you have the first mover advantage, the reason New York Times or Washington Post had credibility on India is because they were underexposed, because they talked so little about India. That's why the first impression becomes the only impression and becomes the lasting impression.
Absolutely.
Right? So, but now what they have done is, in their greed, as in India, their narrative started fading. They started overusing their power on American shores. Now, what happens is, if you tell people every day that India is fascist, if you start putting that on your front page every day, at some point, people in America will start saying, wait. Then I know the New York Times hates half of all of America. Maybe it hates half of all of India. So, if you overexpose something, then there will be opposite reaction. And that is beginning to happen, because, last 1 year, New York Times and Washington Post has been screaming that India's economy is doomed. But FDI in India is up 13%. So what it tells Bloomberg, and what is the message that the people are sending to Bloomberg and New York Times and Washington Post, that you may cry, but we are ignoring you. And they should
with,
get that message that
with,
for their own credibility, they have to become balanced, because
with
people are
great
beginning to pick up on this.
with great respect to Sri Venkaiah Naidu, who's the Vice President of India, I want to indulge in something that only he would do. Says like the New York Times has said, India's economy is doomed, but in actually India has bloomed. He would say something like that on live.
You
So
even got
don't.
the voice. That tone of voice is also perfect.
I
Even the
actually
voice
heard
was
him live.
perfect.
I
Yeah.
actually heard him live in the World in the Congress. We were very close by, and he was so entertaining for 50 minutes. So he'll be like, "Let me tell you something that the journalists of New York Times, they are the ones who are doomed." So he would say something like that.
Actually,
Of
would
course,
say
he
it.
didn't say it. These are the words are mine before someone starts pointing a gun at me. But in closure, and this has been a fantastic discussion. So we have talked from Bengal under
Yeah.
Bengal democracy in Bengal to democracy under danger in India. So I'll bring this back to Bengal when we as we sort of wrap up the discussion. What do you think? I mean, see, I hate telling people to predict the number of seats uh, to so far ahead, because 1.5 months is a long time in a state election, right? But do you think the BJP has a chance to get a comfortable majority, which is more than 145 seats?
So I honestly don't think that Bengal verdict will be like a half-half kind of verdict. It's going to be one way or the other, and at the moment it is very hard for me to imagine a TMC wave. So the answer is either TMC wave or it is BJP wave. And I don't see any symptom of TMC wave. I mean, the way politicians are leaving their part, the TMC, and running towards the BJP. And in Bengal, it is not just a political cost. In Bengal, it can be a physical cost. When you join the other side, you are running a physical cost. So if
Absolutely.
even in places like Malda, this is not even 5 days back. Malda, the entire Zilla Parishad, they went over to BJP. I mean, वो लक्षण होते हैं ना जीतने वाली पार्टी के और हारने वाली पार्टी के. तो टीएमसी में आई हैव नॉट बीन एबल टू सी एनी जीतने वाली पार्टी के लक्षण. एंड द अदर थिंग आई वुड पॉइंट आउट इज अ प्रोफेशनलिज्म गैप. आई नो पीके कंसिडर्स हिमसेल्फ अ बिग प्रोफेशनल, but the TMC's way of fighting election is actually very unprofessional. I mean, in the midst of this campaign, you see they send Derek O'Brien and Subroto Mukherjee to receive Yashwant Sinha, and they are going and receiving this Rakesh Tikait, who cannot move
Yeah.
even 5 votes in Bengal. So what it shows is it shows a certain gap between the two parties, in the sense it is not just a matter of who is winning and who is losing. It is that the two parties are approaching the election very differently, and Mamata Banerjee is still working in a very ad hoc fashion. So for instance, with this phase by phase election, no, BJP has this strategy that once the election is over in one phase, the workers from that phase, they move immediately by the lakhs into the next phase, and they bring with them the word that we are winning over there. So the BJP's machine is so professional, so planned, so data driven, so yeah. And on the other side, you have Mamata Banerjee, who's working on the basis of raw emotion. I started screaming here, I started screaming there. Derek, go bring Yashwant Sinha because he's a senior leader. So they are fighting elections in a different era. Sort of their mindset is different, and most of the regional parties, they suffer from this disadvantage.
No,
So
and
it's not just Mamata.
Yashwant Sinha is a fascinating character because most people don't know that he even started a Jan Morcha, and he is apparently the
Yes, in
chairperson
Bihar.
of he is a chairperson of an alliance called UDA, United Democratic Alliance. And before the podcast, I actually went to their website, and it's a fascinating website because वो 5 महीने में update ही नहीं हुई है after they lost Bihar. And in 2016, he said that he will join. He will नहीं 2016 or 18, I forget. वो इतने statement बदलता है that I also forget timelines, that he will retire from party politics, and then in the
Yeah.
first thing he does is after Bihar elections he goes and joins the party. Like, it is unbelievable, right? And my favorite test part in all this is the fact that he went and said that Mamata Banerjee offered herself to be a hostage in Kanpur or something. Matlab, I'm like,
The
is it
number
a
of jokes
requirement?
that came out against that is absolutely amazing.
No, is it a requirement that you have to sound positively crazy just to join Mamata Banerjee's party? Like, how can I sound crazier than the dear leader?
See, Yashwant Sinha, he is senile, and I feel bad for him. But I will give you an example of a portal, again, one of the top two portals who did this analysis before Bihar elections. It's absolutely hilarious because you mentioned Jan Morcha. Na? He said that this person is a senior analyst. He has been introduced as such at the end of the column. He says says that we have to see what is the impact of Jan Morcha in Bihar, because it may make serious impact, because Yashwant Sinha is a very respected MP from Bihar. It was like, if you were a political analyst, you would know that Yashwant Sinha has never been an MP from Bihar. He has always been an MP from Jharkhand. Hazaribagh is in Jharkhand. So this is the level of your political analysis. If you don't even know the difference between Bihar state and Jharkhand state, and you are an expert on Bihar politics, I mean, what can I say? Big liberal portal is saying you are a political analyst. Okay, you are a political analyst.
No, this was like that moment Lok Sabha, where they were having this discussion in McDonald's and Tesco about growing potatoes, right? So Dipender Huda, he got in so much anger that he said something about 24 inches of aloo, because Narendra Modi as CM had said that McDonald's can come to here. So Sushma Swaraj, in rebutting Dipender Huda, said कि मैं बड़े स्नेह से सुन रही थी दीपेंद्र जी को, लेकिन वो इतना उत्तेजित हो गए कि 2 फुट का आलू उगा. बेटा किसान के बेटे हो, आलू और लौकी में तो फर्क करो. दिस इज लाइक दैट. इतना उत्तेजित हो गए कि सारे सिन्हा, ऑल द सिन्हा लीडर्स, शत्रुघ्न हो या यशवंत, दे ऑल बिकेम सीनियर लीडर्स ऑफ बिहार, एंड दे फॉरगॉट दैट शत्रुघ्न फॉट फ्रॉम बिहार, एंड यशवंत एंड शत्रुघ्न
झारखंड. या तो जिस पॉलिटिकल एनालिस्ट को बिहार और झारखंड का अंतर नहीं पता, वो बिहार पे पॉलिटिकल एनालिसिस कर रहे हैं. ठीक है, हम क्या कह सकते हैं, तो छोटे मोटे लोग हैं.
So I think, see, in all seriousness, Mamata Banerjee was very angry that how dare do Congress and left do 0+0 alliance. So she also, this is her way of doing Mamata +0, because she got Yashwant Sinha, and he will essentially bring us 0 votes. And he has started what he was brought in for. He has appeared on NDTV for an interview. So Yashwant Sinha को लिया तो उसी लिए था आज.
I honestly feel bad for Yashwant Sinha. He's clearly, age is affecting his mental faculty. So I wouldn't actually comment personally on Yashwant Sinha. I feel bad for him. He's clearly, his mind is not working at full potential. So, but I'm just remarking of what it says about TMC's strategy. That in the midst of such a tough election, you're wasting your time with Yashwant Sinha and all. So there is no professionalism. It's like, nay, Yashwant Sinha is a senior person. Let's go welcome him. Maybe it will give us some gravitas. It's very ad hoc. And on the other side, you have BJP, which is like this lean, mean fighting machine. They have analyzed every constituency, every vote, every roadshow, every rally. Everything is planned with mathematical precision. And on the other side, you have this regional party, which is so ad hoc. If Mamata Banerjee wins, I honestly would be surprised, because this Amar Akbar Antony Act, I don't know if people are going to buy, especially people of Bengal. Maybe Bengal has changed under Mamata's rule.
But one last question I have to ask you: if Mamata wins Bengal, which political party will Yashwant Sinha join? Because he has to fight, he has to join parties with Gona. So I am hoping he will join some Bhim army or something like that with Chandrasekhar thing. And I mean,
Yashwant Sinha can join Yogendra Yadav's party. I think that is very, very fitting for him.
Fantastic.
But one last incident I will mention is that recently, this was I think last year, in Alipur Zoo in Kolkata, there was this tiger and tigress, and they gave birth to 2 tiger cubs. Okay, no, it was lion cubs. Sorry, it was 2 lions and lion cubs. And now such is the culture in Bengal that before everything you have to put that this is because of the inspiration given by Honorable Chief Minister. So this is an actual board that came up at Alipur Zoo, which said that Adarniya Mukhyamantri Mamata Banerjee अनुप्रेरणा, मतलब भाई आदरणीय मुख्यमंत्री ममता बनर्जी की प्रेरणा से 2 लायन कब पैदा हुए हैं. This actually happened. This is an actual board that was put up in Alipur Zoo in Kolkata.
I cannot stop cracking up, because this is the most incredible thing ever.
So this is the condition of the state, and that you have to praise her for the worth of 2 lion cubs.
Mamataji does. Who said Mamataji only inspires humans? She also inspires animals.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, so
before we let you go, Abhishek, we have this tradition at MyInd Podcast. We always recommend something non-political, or some movie, some show, some book that you've read, something interesting that you've seen. And since we have given everyone a dose, 70 minutes of political dose, I think we'll give them a little bit of a lighter dose. So what would you recommend?
Okay, so recently I've been so whenever I read something, I generally end up reading history. So I read very little fiction. So maybe I don't think this will definitely fall under the light-hearted category, but I would definitely recommend this book. I would recommend reading the book Bloodlands, Europe between Hitler and Stalin. If you really want to understand the Second World War, we all know the facts of the war, but if you want to understand the war, because it has to be really understood as this conflict, this lovers quarrel between Hitler and Stalin, because they are lovers and then they fall out. So this lovers quarrel that happens between Hitler and Stalin, then that is the real history of the war. So I would encourage people to read this book. It's called Bloodlands, Europe between Hitler and Stalin.
Fascinating. And I would recommend first, my first recommendation would be Abhishek's book, Operation Johar, the love
Oh,
story.
thank you.
Do read it. He's written a very interesting book. I mean, I know this, I have recommended this before, but I think it was published 1.5 to 2 years ago. Do read it. Do write to him what you think about, he tweets at Abhish. Okay, let me do this properly. Your Twitter handle, because at Abhish Banerjee, at
Yeah, that's okay. No,
No,
but
I mean,
no, but much more than my book, I would actually be plugging this book, Bloodlands, Europe between Hitler and Stalin, because what really happened is that you have to understand that the communists and the Nazis were together, and it really
yeah,
bothers me that people don't understand. So it is the Jewish people who suffered, and why did the Jewish people suffer? They suffered because the communists and the Nazis came together, and they
absolutely.
together invaded Poland and they tortured the people, the Jewish people. That's who the Jewish people are, the real victims of the World War, and the communists and the Nazis, they are the perpetrators of the World War. And this needs to be understood.
Absolutely. And another book that I was going to recommend based on a movie, I saw a movie called Zero Dark 30, which was a fantastic
I've
movie.
heard of it.
12, 13. My wife hadn't watched it, so we were watching it together about how Bin Laden was captured and killed. And I mean, of course, it fictionalizes a lot of things and all. But there is a book called Ghost Wars, written by Steve Cole, which is about America with the Taliban and Middle East and how the Taliban was created and how money was given. It is one of the most fantastic books you'll ever read. And do read, and because these are two of the major cataclysmic events of the centuries, right? The rise of the Taliban and what happened in the Cold War during that, and what Abhishek said about the Nazis and what happened in World War II and the
Yeah.
communists, right? It's a fascinating thing on that. And actually, Bill Maher yesterday, who's on the left, he actually on his show they were critiquing crony capitalism. They were critiquing the big Facebook, Amazon, but then he went on a 3 or 4 minute rant saying, this is not me justifying communism. Communism is bad. We have experimented with this, and we don't want this shit. And I don't want people in the left to be confused that a critique of capitalism or crony capitalism is equal to communism. Capitalism works. We are just asking, where can it be made better? So even the American left acknowledges that. I'm not talking about the Bernie Sanders left.
But I think, no, but I totally disagree that Bill Maher is any more part of the left. I mean, ever since Bill Maher started talking about the religion of peace, he has pretty much been cancelled. He is no longer really part of the left, is he anymore?
But no,
I
actually,
mean,
but he is the old American left. The
he is
reason
the
why,
old American left.
the
He is the old
reason why
American left.
most,
But he has been
I
cancelled. I don't know if Bill Maher is really on anybody's
I
good books.
always say, people ask me, why do more Indians vote for the Democrats earlier? Because the earlier Democrats were Bill Maher Democrats. Yeah, they were not. Their difference with the Republican, and Republicans were right of everyone, right? And they were not being comfortable with this anti-gay, pro-Christian,
Yeah.
right, that the Republican platform was. But that slowly started changing, and now you see this thing. But Bill Maher, he actually had a 5 minute monologue yesterday on saying that, boss, you have to acknowledge the threat that China is, and China has already won. And he's like, while China,
Yeah, it actually showed up in my YouTube recommendations. I haven't clicked that one
yeah,
yet.
he had a fantastic line where he said that while China is building dams, US is debating what to name the dams.
Yeah.
And
No,
that's such a
it is a frightening situation. I mean, San Francisco, the schools recently, 45 schools were renamed, from, and they removed names like Washington, Lincoln, Jefferson. And one of the most hilarious and saddest parts is when the case of Roosevelt High School, because they have to change the name of Roosevelt. Now, both Roosevelts are cancelled, Theodore and Franklin, but for bureaucratic reasons, they have to write down which one has been cancelled in this specific case. The problem is nobody can remember whether Roosevelt High is named after Teddy Roosevelt or Franklin Roosevelt. This is the condition. And imagine how much China is laughing at this.
No, so that's the whole Dr. Seuss thing. Bill Maher is like, maybe that book was bad, but I'll tell you which country doesn't give a shit about that. China itself. China doesn't care what we read in Dr. Seuss's books because they are focused on something else. You know, so it's very interesting. But thank you, Abhishek. You've been very generous with your time, and this was a great discussion. I hope to have you back very soon, discussing, what happened in Bengal, and maybe doing a post-mortem of the elections and doing this.
That is scary. Even thinking about it gives me. Right. One wish that I had for the election commission was this: that the election results from Bengal should be declared on the 1st of May.
On the really?
Because that will truly be a poetic end to what Jyoti Basu did in Bengal, is to declare the election result on 1st May. May Divash.
Kya pata, 1st of May we might know the exit polls, and they might declare the results for Bengal without knowing. So we'll let the left grieve in peace on 1st of May.
Sure.
Thank you so much. This has been great fun. And guys, please like, subscribe, follow, share. And we'll be back on all relevant platforms. I don't even want to name one. And we'll be back next week, or maybe in this week with more political coverage. A little bit about Tamil Nadu and Kerala and Assam as well in the coming podcast. But thank you so much. And we'll be back soon.